OMG, after 13 years, I can't believe I'm still hung up on my ex. He's got a perfect life now, and I'm just stuck in my feelings. I have not been able to stop thinking about my former partner, Adam, since he exited my life 13 years ago. I am happily married to my husband, and we lead a relatively good life together. Nonetheless, I struggle to move past my feelings for my ex. I met Adam during my time in college in the UK, which is essentially after completing high school but before entering university. At that moment, I had recently ended my relationship with my boyfriend. Adam and I were enrolled in the same college course, though he was in a different class. He grabbed my attention with his long fringe and a panic at the disco t-shirt. Quite a mo, I know. I essentially stalked him on Facebook for several weeks before mustering the courage to send him a friend request. He accepted, and I began browsing his photos, realizing he had attended the same concert as me 6 months earlier. I commented on one of his pictures, and he replied. I finally worked up the nerve to message him, and his quick response revealed that we clicked immediately. We began spending time together during college breaks and lunchtime, and I fell deeply in love with him. After a few outings, he asked me to be his girlfriend, but only if my previous boyfriend, who was in my class and on the same course, was okay with it. I told him I would get back to him. I never approached my former boyfriend about it, instead claiming that he had approved. Things progressed wonderfully, but I ended up hurting my previous boyfriend by not being honest, and he chose to stop speaking to me. As a result, I lost many friends in my class, but I remained indifferent. My relationship with Adam was fantastic. I would go to his place almost daily after college and began staying over. We dated for nearly a year, and he was an incredible boyfriend who consistently went above and beyond for me. He was always there for me, becoming my closest friend. However, after almost a year of dating, I began initiating arguments to create drama. He constantly tried to engage in discussions, but I resorted to shouting insults at him. Eventually, we reached a breaking point and mutually decided to end our relationship. I was initially content, believing everything was his fault, but later realized that was an inaccurate perspective. This is where everything went awry. I threw a party and invited him, but he was unable to attend due to starting a job at a bar. I was furious with him, got heavily intoxicated, and ended up kissing his best friend at college, as well as another girl from his class. The subsequent day at college, he approached me with a smile, inquiring if we could walk to our classes together. Overcome with guilt, I revealed what I had done at the party while we walked. He looked utterly heartbroken, offering no response. Instead, he entered his classroom where his best friend was located, while I went to mine. I did not hear from him for a few days afterward, and he actively avoided me. After some time, I texted him, requesting a discussion. He criticized me, asking how I could betray him and insisting I was awful to him, stating that he would never have treated me the same way. He also mentioned that girls from college had approached him, asking if he wanted to meet up, but he turned them down to avoid hurting my feelings. This infuriated me further, and I unleashed a torrent of insults aimed at him. Eventually, he snapped, calling me a terrible name and instructing me to never speak to him again. I deleted my messages and showed my college tutors the texts he had sent me, leading to him being summoned to the office, where he received a severe reprimand. I worried he might reveal the texts I had sent him, but he apparently did not, as we both exited the office separately and went home. My anger shifted to overwhelming guilt. I attempted to contact him, but he never responded, and I discovered he had blocked me on Facebook. My heart sank, only to be replaced by anger again. I began messaging my previous boyfriend, who seemed eager to converse now that I was no longer with Adam. I would hang out with him in plain sight of Adam to try and provoke jealousy. Despite appearing downcast and depressed, Adam never reached out. I escalated my efforts to ruin his reputation at college, fabricating stories to ensure no one would date him. I engaged in various actions to make his college experience miserable, but that's another lengthy tale. One day, Adam approached me while I was alone, asking if we could talk. I agreed but rolled my eyes simultaneously. He apologized for his harsh words and suggested we could be friends again, potentially even more. I felt a rush of butterflies. However, I now regret my response. I told him he disgusted me and said he should end his life. He looked at me with tears in his eyes before getting up and walking away. I selfishly relished the satisfaction of having hurt him deeply. I also informed my tutors that he had expressed suicidal thoughts, something he never stated to me. I still had feelings for him, yet I derived an unsettling satisfaction from witnessing his pain. He was called into the office again, and my tutors took my side entirely, as I portrayed myself as a concerned ex-girlfriend. He left the office, but I remained unaware of what transpired. After that, he attended college only once a week on the days I was absent. In the meantime, I rekindled my relationship with my previous boyfriend as a way to add further salt to his wounds. Adam never messaged, texted, or attempted to approach me. Over a couple of months, I grew tired of my previous boyfriend and began thinking about Adam again, ultimately breaking off my prior relationship to hope for a chance to reconnect with Adam. During this time, I learned that Adam had started dating others, including one of my college friend's best friends, someone who harbored animosity toward me. This revelation devastated me. How could he do this to me? She was significantly more attractive, kinder, funnier, and better suited for him than I was. However, a few days later, I learned he had ended that relationship. My college friend explained that Adam's mental state wasn't stable, and he was unwilling to start something new until he was prepared. This news brought me joy, motivating me to consider manipulating him once again. As college concluded, Adam vanished from sight during all the events. At that point, I began seeing other people. This was when I met my current husband. We quickly transitioned to an official relationship, knowing that this news would eventually reach Adam. However, I soon discovered he had begun dating a new partner as well. I felt disappointed, but had a plan. Aware of which university he would attend, I altered my own plans to enroll in the same institution. I persuaded my husband to choose a different university in the same city. I applied to join the same course as Adam, eagerly anticipating our first day at university, where Adam would remain oblivious to my scheme. On the first day, I arrived early purposely to avoid running into him before he saw me. 15 minutes later, he entered the waiting area. He looked fantastic. His hair was cut into a stylish, shorter look, accentuating his face. It was evident he had been hitting the gym during the months apart. He was never overweight, but he had visibly toned up and walked with newfound confidence. I was captivated by his transformation. When he saw me, he appeared shocked before immediately looking away. During class, he made a point to sit as far from me as possible. I exited the classroom only to notice he lingered behind to speak with our lecturers. I later learned he informed them that I was his ex and requested not to be placed in the same class as me. I couldn't believe he would do such a thing. For the first time, I understood what it felt like for tutors or lecturers to be manipulated into disliking you. This completely sabotaged my plan to reconnect with him. Adding to my frustration, my husband's accommodation fell through. He applied to join mine, and upon my return, I realized he had been placed in the same flat as me. Months passed without Adam acknowledging or speaking to me while I continued to give him distance. I discovered that he had been with several girls from the courses above ours, one of whom resembled a supermodel. I was heartbroken, but accepted that he was single, thinking he must have ended his previous relationship before university, and there was nothing I could do. My only option was to attempt to reconnect. I tried joining nights out he attended, but he would leave as soon as he saw me. One occasion, I sat in a pub with his university friends, who eagerly awaited his arrival. I remained there for an hour before realizing they had likely informed him I would be present. This prompted me to circulate more falsehoods to elicit a response from him, although no one seemed to believe my claims. Gradually, I became an outcast. After a few months, I decided to alter my approach. I attempted to sit near him in joint lessons and join conversations he had with others. During my first effort, he stayed seated but remained disinterested in speaking with me. On the second try, he gathered his belongings and moved to the opposite side of the lecture hall. I attempted a few more times, but each time he relocated. In a final effort, I took a seat immediately beside him, but as he prepared to leave, I grabbed his arm and pleaded for him to talk to me. He gazed at me with an expression I had never witnessed from him and simply stated, "Don't touch me." I released my grip, noting the number of people in the lecture hall, and he walked away. That moment marked the last time he ever spoke to me or directed his gaze in my direction. Later that week, While working on an assignment with his best friend at university, I mentioned Adam. His friend requested I cease discussing him, revealing that Adam had said he wants nothing to do with me ever. I was utterly taken aback, unable to believe that Adam never mentioned me despite our significant history together. Shock overcame me when his best friend reiterated Adam's sentiments, insisting we resume our work. For the following 2 hours, I processed this revelation while finishing our joint assignment. Upon leaving to catch the bus, I broke down in tears throughout the journey back to my flat. I understood in that moment that it was over with Adam, so I dedicated myself wholeheartedly to my relationship with my husband. Over the years, I periodically checked on Adam, unable to resist the urge. I noticed he had a series of girlfriends leading up to his current fiancée. This is when my feelings resurfaced. I discovered his fiancée is extraordinarily beautiful, there's no other way to put it. She embodies everything I am not. They purchased a sizable home, have children, and a dog, creating the very life we once envisioned together. This knowledge deeply troubles me. I feel as though that life should belong to me. All my college friends have become his friends now, leaving me without mutual connections. Despite my genuine love for my husband and my enjoyment of the life we've created, I feel an overwhelming sense of loss regarding my opportunities with Adam. Am I only experiencing these feelings due to guilt or jealousy? Should I reach out to Adam now that he seems to have unblocked me on Facebook? I continue to love my husband, but I cannot suppress these emotions any longer. I'm uncertain how I should feel or act at this point. Am I wrong for feeling this way? Story 2. Moved 8 hours away for a fresh start, then my mom had a stroke. Now my family blames me for not staying to fix everything. Hello, I am a 24-year-old female and the eldest of 5 siblings. My life has been filled with challenges, but I will attempt to convey my story concisely, as it can be quite extensive. My apologies for the length. I am the oldest among my siblings. I am 24, my brother is 23, my sister is 21, another sister is 13, and my youngest brother is 8 years old. My parents, aged 42 and 43, became parents as teenagers while still in high school. Our upbringing was not ideal, primarily because my parents did not complete their education. My father held a basic job, and my mother has never been employed. She has always been a stay-at-home parent. We were raised in a severely low-income environment. My mother struggled with hoarding, which rendered our home perpetually disorganized and unsafe, regardless of her efforts to maintain cleanliness. The clutter seemed endless. The area we lived in was predominantly low income, with limited educational resources, making it difficult to flourish in such a setting. As children, we were exposed to drugs at a young age, around 12 or 13 years old. My father had a fluctuating relationship with alcohol, and my mother exhibited narcissistic and abusive behaviors while inadequately caring for us. As the oldest sibling, I often took on the responsibilities of caring for my younger siblings, cleaning, and cooking. My parents were entrenched in a toxic and abusive relationship for years. My mother, lacking income or a means to support herself if she wished to leave my father, frequently expressed feelings of entrapment and helplessness. Although my mother was not the ideal parent, as I matured, I engaged in meaningful conversations with her and began to comprehend the reasons behind her behavior. Initially, I placed much blame on her, fueled by my father's negative portrayal of her. However, I eventually realized that my father shares culpability as well. Fast forward to when I met my girlfriend, who is now my wife, at age 22 in 2022. We became engaged a year later and have made plans to relocate in 2023 to a place 8 hours away from home. Our decision was well known, and my family supported my desire to pursue my dreams, particularly since my wife contributes to my happiness and our goal of establishing a successful life together. She recognizes my aspirations to break familial patterns, complete my education, secure a career, and create a healthy living environment. My wife has consistently supported me and advocated for my goals as we work hard to build a prosperous future together. We set our moving date for June 2023, 6 months prior, signing our lease, paying for everything, acquiring furniture for delivery, and hosting a farewell party where friends and family gifted us with essentials for our new apartment. We also secured jobs in our new city that pay 3 times more than our previous employment, making this move an obvious choice for our growth as individuals and as a couple. In February 2023, my mother unfortunately experienced a severe stroke, which necessitated a 3-month hospital stay. She is now paralyzed on the right side of her body and is not the same person anymore. While she can communicate and perform certain tasks for herself, she remains highly dependent on others. Her stroke occurred just 4 months before our planned move. To provide some context, my father had resumed drinking before my mother's stroke and often stayed out all night, leaving him unable to take my 13-year-old sister to school and absent from family life. My youngest brother, who is 8 and has nonverbal autism, has never been enrolled in school, which is illegal, meaning his autism has not received treatment since his diagnosis at age 2. The family's living conditions worsened significantly, and my mother had already begun to relinquish hope before her stroke. I frequently offered assistance, such as taking the kids to school, purchasing groceries, urging my parents to enroll my brother in school, scheduling medical appointments for the children, and trying to help my mother obtain her driver's license for her independence. Regrettably, she never followed through and kept making excuses. Before my mother's stroke, I recognized the numerous issues plaguing our family and tried to help, only to realize that I couldn't force assistance upon those who were unwilling to accept it. Following my mother's stroke, my 23-year-old brother chose to remain home as a legal caregiver for our mother, given that he was unemployed and living at home without future plans. My 21-year-old sister moved out near our former home with her boyfriend and also assists in caring for our mother. I became increasingly concerned about the welfare of my minor siblings, particularly given the lack of resources, finances, and time needed to care for them, especially my autistic brother. Despite these challenges, I intended to proceed with my plans to move away. I could not abandon everything I had organized, as my job transfer was already confirmed, the lease was signed and paid for, and the moving arrangements were scheduled. My wife and I were making significant plans for our future. I assisted in cleaning the house to the best of my ability, organizing it, and purchasing new appliances for my siblings. My wife also contributed significantly to my family's needs before our relocation, made appointments within home supportive services so my mother could receive necessary funding and services, and continued to seek help from my father regarding the children. Ultimately, I moved away in June 2023, hoping for the best for my family while recognizing that I could no longer remain in that environment. I had contributed as much as possible while working full-time, which did not yield a significant income. I sacrificed many opportunities, including college scholarships, to remain there and assist. When I could, I traveled back to visit and check on everyone. Fast forward to January 2024, I discovered that my father had become increasingly absent, engaging in heavy drug use and alcohol consumption, frequenting bars, and neglecting his responsibilities as a parent, completely disregarding my mother. His treatment of her was poor before her stroke, but now he seems to be avoiding feelings of guilt. My 13-year-old sister has not been attending school regularly nor receiving proper care. My 8-year-old brother has not been enrolled in school or receiving necessary treatment for his autism, and my father jeopardized his job while failing to pay bills. In February 2024, Child Protective Services became involved and removed the children due to neglect and failure to protect. My family began directing blame toward me for not choosing to stay and address the situation, implying that my presence could have changed everything. They accused me of causing the circumstances and disregarded my parents' poor decisions. I did not cause my mother's stroke. I have not engaged in drug use, nor did I bring children into the world that I could not care for. There was no neglect on my part. They argued that I should have remained and accused me of selfishness. My wife has been incredibly supportive. She assured me that she would not fault me if I chose to leave her to care for my family. After discussing this with my therapist and my wife, I had to consider whether it would be wise to sacrifice everything I have built with her to return to an environment that has caused me trauma. We even debated the possibility of taking in my younger sister. After grappling with these challenging conversations and analyzing our finances via spreadsheets, We concluded that both of us would have to make significant sacrifices to care for her properly, and we are currently not in a position to raise a child. My wife pointed out that I would likely abandon my dreams and career objectives, as my attention would be diverted to my sister and family. Our relationship would suffer because we would bear the responsibility of ensuring my sister's well-being. It felt as though I would be perpetuating a cycle of struggles. I care deeply for my sister still visiting her, providing her clothes, phones, and school supplies, yet asking my wife to take on this responsibility is unfair. She has her own aspirations, desires a family, and hopes to see me achieve my goals. This situation is neither fair to her nor to myself. Currently, I have secured a job paying $70,000, which I am proud of, yet I need to complete my education to pursue a career that aligns with my aspirations and enable me to purchase a home and attain financial stability. Becoming a parent at this juncture would likely leave us living paycheck to paycheck in a high-cost area. However, my salary will compensate for it. My wife is genuinely the only person who prioritizes my ambitions, future, mental health, and well-being and wishes to see me flourish. Since moving away, I have experienced significant improvement. I attend therapy regularly, have overcome insomnia, have made strides in managing my depression and anxiety, and maintain a healthier lifestyle. I am also returning to school to complete my degree and earn double what I previously made. My quality of life has improved, and I have established a routine, met successful individuals, and stepped out of my comfort zone. For the first time, I feel I can breathe and focus on my own well-being. My wife consistently takes great care of me, and we nurture one another. I have become the first in my family to achieve a happy and healthy marriage, graduate high school, pursue higher education, and make sound financial decisions alongside my wife. I am on the right path to the life I desire and feel that my goals are within reach. How can I look after others if I cannot care for myself? Furthermore, I must prioritize my wife, as relationships require mutual care and support. We are open to the idea of considering taking in my sister in the future. When we are financially stable and home owners, we are still young in our 20s, navigating married life. This situation is heartbreaking and has left me feeling despondent for an extended period. My 13-year-old sister is currently under temporary care with my grandmother, who is not willing to provide long-term support, meaning my sister may end up in foster care after the last court hearing. My 8-year-old brother will be adopted by the family that has been caring for him for a year, specializing in the 24-hour care he requires for his autism, and they are kind enough to facilitate sibling contact. I genuinely want to assist everyone, and I wish I had all the solutions while still emphasizing my own needs and those of my wife. I cannot spread myself too thin, as I have faced similar situations in the past. I am seeking opinions and thoughts on this matter as I navigate these challenges while also dealing with my own issues and responsibilities within my marriage. Story 3. From invisible to irresistible, I went from lunching alone to crushing hearts. But deep down, I'm still that awkward kid. OMG. I am 26 years old and female. This marks my initial post on Reddit, but there is a topic I find difficult to discuss. Please scroll to the end for a summary. I did not consider myself attractive growing up. I was an overweight, unathletic, awkward-looking child. I never learned how to dress properly and was only reminded to maintain my hair. I lacked any notable talents, intelligence, or hygiene. I did not reach puberty until the age of 16, which meant that throughout much of high school, I still thought like a child. I had undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and possibly autism, leading to my alienation from most classmates because I struggled with understanding social cues, group dynamics, and personal space. I likely was quite annoying to others and faced rejection from kindergarten through early high school. I had a few acquaintances, but my closest friends were family friends who felt more like relatives. I became accustomed to spending time alone, and when I did engage with others, I primarily focused on observing them. When puberty struck, my entire face began to change. My body redistributed weight to more appealing areas. As a result, I found I was somewhat fortunate in terms of proportions. The new hormones and emotions associated with puberty also made me self-aware for the first time, which created both positive and negative outcomes. Friend groups began to accept me as though they were no longer embarrassed to associate with me. Boys who once joked about having a crush on me now genuinely developed feelings for me. I initially had few friends, but it became easier to connect with boys and queer individuals, leading to an unintentional formation of friendships. Consequently, many of them would develop crushes on me, which I hoped they would overcome, as I rarely felt that way toward others and had only recently become interested in dating. The first dates I attended were often due to my reluctance to decline invitations. To complicate matters, a female friend once accused me of possessing pretty privilege, a claim I did not accept. Over the years, I worked on enhancing my appearance by learning about hair care, skincare, makeup, and fashion. Currently, I am focused on getting into better shape, which I find enjoyable. I often say that looking good is a hobby, and I have been astonished by how attractive some of my recent partners are. This transformation has coincided with me becoming more social and extroverted. I have never enjoyed being alone. My social awkwardness pushed me into isolation. Sometimes, I reflect on whether I am compensating for lost time by socializing so much. Perhaps I seek to feel like one of the popular kids from whom I felt shunned. I genuinely love people and have found joy in the fact that others can finally perceive me or even return that affection. However, navigating the world in this manner can be perplexing. When I am in a relationship and mention my boyfriend to a man, I notice an immediate loss of interest on his part. A similar response occurs when I decline a man's advances while single. The resentment on his face before he leaves is quite evident. While I do not hold it against them, it makes me feel as though I am irrelevant if I am not perceived as a potential romantic interest. One comment I frequently receive is that I come off as intimidating, which contradicts my intentions. Both men and women have expressed this sentiment. Attractive men I have met through dating apps have mentioned they would not approach me in a bar because it feels too scary. In reality, I am rarely approached by attractive men in such settings. I suppose I understand their viewpoint. I also feel nervous around those I find appealing. Regardless, I often remark that I am intimidating until I begin to speak. Another common remark is that I exude confidence. When I first heard this, it was quite confusing. I started responding with, "I'm really pleased it seems that way," as I was likely busy calculating what to say and interpreting the other person's feelings throughout our conversation. I realized that my appearance masked the effort I constantly exert in social situations. I always wished others understood this struggle. The gap between my internal self-perception and my external appearance has only widened. Early social rejection leaves a lasting impact that is difficult to shake off. During late high school and into college, I became more aware of how other women view me. I eventually learned that some women, sometimes even friends, harbored negative feelings towards me. I am uncertain why this information continuously reached me, but I often heard things like, "Oh yes, she dislikes you," followed by, "She's probably just jealous," or, "It's because you are pretty." I would not be writing this if I had not heard it so many times. When this first occurred, it hurt significantly. The wound of rejection was reopened, and I simply could not believe it. I thought they disliked me for any number of reasons unrelated to my appearance. I could have easily missed a crucial social cue somewhere along the way. However, the same scenario continued to repeat itself with straight women, more times than I can count. I am not unaware. I understand there is a primal reason behind such behaviors. Most of the time, it revolves around a man. The reasons vary. We might genuinely compete for a male's attention. I might be friends with their boyfriend. I might talk to a man at a party, or their friend might express that he finds me attractive. A majority of the time, I have had minimal interaction with these women, typically no more than 2 exchanges, but the ones who truly hurt are the ones related to friends. What frustrates me is that almost every time, I remain completely unaware until someone reveals the situation to me. I often rely on a friend to point out when someone has been rude or condescending to my face. This realization makes me feel foolish, and I wish people knew I remain that same child inside who once sat alone during lunch and always felt like an outsider looking in. I connect wonderfully with confident and secure women. They possess no reason to feel envious of me, and I genuinely believe that no woman should harbor jealousy toward me. I recognize that women instinctively size each other up when entering a room. I have experienced jealousy as well. However, once I engage in conversation with another woman, she becomes humanized, and any jealousy transforms into admiration. I consciously try to embrace this because I detest the politics of attraction. I simply desire female friendship. Additionally, I do not even regard myself as conventionally attractive. We are all acutely aware of our own imperfections, and I consider many of mine to be quite apparent. I am not an ideal human specimen. Even now, I struggle to believe my friends when they assert that any issues stem from my appearance. If this situation truly arose solely because I am exceptionally attractive, I would accept that and move on, but I genuinely do not think that is the full explanation. Here are some other possible reasons I have contemplated. 1. I might find it easier to communicate with men and subconsciously engage with them more frequently than women. This is something I recognize I can and should improve. 2. A combination of my neurodivergence and social anxiety may have caused me to overlook important cues or boundaries, making me appear aloof or arrogant despite my best intentions. 3. My appearance and meticulous grooming might lead others to perceive me as unapproachable and intimidating, suggesting I should tone it down to align perceptions more closely with how I genuinely feel. 4. The most sensitive part of me believes people form specific expectations before meeting me, then feel disappointed when they do. That is a challenging notion to accept. It's as if in the tale of the ugly duckling, the swan ultimately turns out to be somewhat annoying, vindicating the judgments of the other ducks. I know that this may come across as frustrating to hear someone lament about their circumstances. Please understand that I value all my blessings. Nevertheless, this particular state of being brings its own subtle existential dread and uncertainty, which can affect one's mindset and hinder personal growth. I do not seek sympathy, but rather hope to convey my perspective. I'm eager to improve my situation, mindset, or to discover if others share similar experiences. The next time you find yourself annoyed by or scornful of an attractive woman, keep in mind that she may also feel lost in her own way. Summary: I spent my childhood feeling unattractive and isolated until puberty transformed my appearance, and social acceptance followed. The emotional scars of alienation linger, and my late diagnosis of neurodivergence has reframed many awkward social encounters and an ongoing obsession with observing social behavior. In environments where romantic dynamics are significant, the treatment I receive from both men and women often stirs up old feelings of rejection and self-doubt, especially in my interactions with women. I frequently discover secondhand that other women harbor negative feelings towards me, attributed to jealousy. However, I suspect that my social missteps are more likely the cause, as I outwardly appear confident and attractive yet still feel like the awkward child internally. I also do not regard myself as a model, which complicates my understanding of this recurring phenomenon. Story 4. After 2.5 years, my boyfriend wants to be together but believes we shouldn't. He's unsure, leaving me heartbroken. OMG, what now? For some context, my boyfriend, who is 22 years old, and I, who am 21 years old, have been in a relationship for 2.5 years. We first met when I was in my first year of university, and he was taking a gap year, allowing us to see each other several times a week. However, during my second year, we ended up being 100 miles apart due to the locations of our universities, which meant we could only see each other every 4 to 7 weeks for a weekend or a short break. Currently, in my third year, I am on an industrial placement in the same area as his university, so we get to see each other almost every weekend or every other weekend, apart from times when he returns home for winter break or during exam periods. In January of this year, my boyfriend had exams, and we didn't see each other for a few weeks. About 3 weeks ago, we had a very intense argument. This disagreement became quite heated because we typically do not handle arguments constructively. It often turns into a clash between him and me instead of approaching the issue as a united front. We also tend to address superficial aspects rather than the deeper issue that triggered the argument. This is a mutual issue, but the conflict escalated unusually, and he suggested we discuss things in person once his exams were completed. Approximately 2 weeks ago, on the Friday he completed his exams, we had a conversation. He essentially expressed that he wants to be with me and is committed to the relationship, but in the long term, doesn't believe it is the right fit. This was understandably very distressing for me, and I encouraged him to reconsider. I emphasized the importance of open communication between us to work through the underlying causes of our arguments, as they all trace back to one fundamental issue. The core issue is that I often feel disconnected from his life when we are apart. My boyfriend is an independent individual who usually listens while I engage in conversation, which makes our time apart even more challenging. I sometimes feel as though he has hidden things from me when he casually brings up topics he should have informed me about months earlier. While I recognize he does not intend this, it leads to misunderstandings and arguments, as it gives me the impression he is being deceptive, when in reality, he simply forgot to mention certain things. This is my personal challenge, but it is also his to some extent, and that is why I believe we should address it together. I genuinely think that if we tackle this issue and engage in multiple discussions to help him understand my feelings while allowing me to appreciate his perspective, then we can take proactive measures to minimize these feelings. Consequently, the resulting arguments should lessen as well. I brought this idea up to him 2 weeks ago, and after extensive conversation, he appeared to be open to the concept. We spent that weekend together, which was truly delightful, reminiscent of our usual happy and laughter-filled moments where we enjoyed quality time. Before leaving on that Sunday, I made sure he understood that, while we have many discussions ahead, I was not ignoring this reality. He went home for the subsequent 2 weeks, and even during that time, I noticed he was more engaged with me than he typically is when we are apart. He returned from home on Friday. The following day, he asked if I wanted to hang out while I was already planning to be by his area to pick something up from a nearby store. I informed him of my plans, but didn't receive a response, so I decided to proceed to the shop, as it would be closing soon. He later sent a message apologizing, explaining he was trying to catch up on work missed during his time at home. I had a gift from my parents and a card from me that I wanted to give him related to his time away, so I drove over to drop it off. We talked while in my car, and he mentioned, "You can come into the house if you wish." Personally, when someone says, "if you wish," at the end of an invitation, it often feels like a polite way of saying they do not genuinely want you to come in. I responded by asking if he wanted me to, and he simply said he wasn't doing much, so I could if I chose to. Once again, with the, "if you choose to," I told him I wouldn't enter a house where I felt uninvited. I attempted to give him every opportunity to say he wanted me to come in, yet he did not. After some further small talk, he went back inside his house. I was hurt by this and texted him that all he needed to do was express that he wanted me to stay. I drove to a nearby park and sat in my car reflecting, feeling that the situation was quite unpleasant and it hurt my feelings. I thought he might reach out, asking me to return because he did want to spend time together. Instead, he shared that in the past 2 weeks, he had been thinking and still believed we should not be together. I drove back to his place, and we sat in my car from 7 p.m. until 2:30 a.m., discussing this matter. He repeatedly stated that he had made up his mind and that nothing I could say would change it, insisting that this was for the best. I tried to reason with him, but he wouldn't engage. He kept asserting that while he wanted to be with me, he didn't think we should stay together at this moment, claiming that trying wouldn't be effective. I explained that we have never truly delved into the real issues during our disagreements, and that we must communicate openly and understand each other to take appropriate actions. I emphasized that if we at least attempted to address these concerns, we would know we had done everything we could. If things worked out, that would be fantastic, and if not, we could part ways amicably, each on the same wavelength. At some point during the conversation, I cannot pinpoint when or why, he began to listen and actually engage in a discussion. He conveyed feeling unable to fully enjoy the positive moments because it felt as though there was always an ominous cloud hanging over us. He expressed concern that at any moment, I might become upset about something again, and that this caused him pain. I genuinely hadn't realized I had been doing that, and I now understand his perspective. I want to change that behavior, and I am confident that I can. I truly believe that if we focus on the actual issues, that cloud will dissipate, as we would have effectively eliminated its source. I recognize his worries, including the notion that even if we resolve one issue, another might arise in the future. While I understand that arguments are a natural aspect of relationships, the reason ours can be so damaging is that we approach them poorly. The conversation concluded with us still engaged in the relationship, although he remained uncertain about whether it was the right choice for us. I am sharing this on Reddit to seek advice. My boyfriend and I began this relationship as young adults, and we have both grown significantly during our time together. We need to adopt a more mature approach moving forward. If anyone else has gone through a similar experience, please share in the comments. I am curious about what steps we should take to improve our relationship and resolve these recurring issues stemming from our underlying concerns. In summary, I desire to maintain this relationship, and he shares that sentiment. However, he doubts its viability. Given the depth of our feelings for each other, I believe we can make this work. Perhaps I am being overly optimistic, or he is being overly pessimistic, but if we attempt it and it succeeds, that would be wonderful. Conversely, if we try and it fails, at least we can step away with the understanding that we did everything possible, but the timing was simply not right for us.